Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. So the intro montage of this video was building this thing right here. And what this is the secondary collector for the Mark II's new exhaust manifold. So I've opted to use 321 stainless tube from Stainless Bros, and I built this piece as the lowest profile 2.5-inch tube merge that I could make. So in looking at the fixture right here, you can see that the clearance between the turbine flange plate and the head flange plate, there is not very much. But with this merge, and even if I hold it off of the plate, I don't know, 1/2 inch or so, as the turbine flange should be, or the thickness of the turbine flange should be, you can see that we have clearance. I'm not sure if it will be ample clearance or not, but we do have clearance to the head flange, and hopefully the water tube that runs between, or runs next to the block and everything right there. What I'm trying to say is hopefully it should work. But now that this is done, I need to order the rest of the materials to make the rest of this manifold. But in order to order the rest of the materials, I need to figure out what materials I need in the first place. So there'll be a bit of talking right now, but let's go ahead and break down how to determine the materials that are necessary to build an exhaust manifold. So as we're going to begin figuring out the materials list for the Mark II's new manifold, we need a few tools and a few items to do so. So we need a caliper or some sort of a measuring device to be able to measure the port size on the manifold. And then really, I guess the only other thing that we need is a piece of paper. The things that we need rather are a piece of paper and some sort of a writing utensil. So this manifold right here, it's a modified 7M GTE cast exhaust manifold. And don't mind the bullseyes around it. That is from when my friend Matt and I scanned this, 3D scanned it, and got it put in his CAD software. So what I'm first going to do is come to the back side of the manifold, or the actual cylinder head mating side. And I'm going to measure the port size. And that will tell me pretty quickly and pretty easily what size the tubes that will construct the primaries need to be, or at least what they need to be to not cause a restriction. So measuring to the inside here, pull out, we see 1.430 inches or 36.34 millimeters for those of you using the metric system. So on my piece of paper, I'll go ahead and make note that port size is 1/430,000th of an inch. And what I will use for this, being that the port size is that 1/430, I will use 1.5-inch tubing to make up each of the primaries for this manifold. So then we come back to the front side here, and this is where kind of the visualization for this takes place. As even though this is a cast piece, you can still see the bends and you can see the overall form of it. And granted, I won't be able to make it as compact as this manifold is, nor do I really want to with all of the tube architecture that will go in place. However, this at least gives me an idea of the shape and everything that will be involved, or the shapes that will be involved in constructing this. So on my note sheet, I'll go ahead and make a section called primary materials. And from there, I'll make notes underneath that I'm using 1.5-inch tube. Being that everything is pretty tight confines with this, we're going to use tight radius bends for all the primaries at least. So this manifold, or at least the one that I'm going to construct, will be kind of in a roundabout way similar to my 2JZ GTE Gen R manifolds in regards to, or in for the fact that it's going to be a tri-wide manifold. Hence why I have my secondary collector that is a 2-into-1. So we will go 3 to 2 to 1. And I guess let me make a note real quick why I'm not measuring this port right here. Is the turbine flange that I've sourced for this, I've already figured out the size, and it's right around 2.5 inches. So that is already taken care of, and now we can go ahead and move on to the primaries. So if we take this and kind of visualize, rather than everything coming to a head right at the turbine flange as this one is constructed here, this new manifold rather will have the collector something like that. So we'll need to do some swooping to get back up to where I can mate the primaries to the primary collectors and the secondaries. So going from the head flange out, what do we need for materials? Well, it looks like we have 190 here, another 90 here. This is essentially a 90, a 90, a 90, and a 90. So that puts us at 6 90-degree bends as we sit right now. Now, what I generally like to do is double up that order. So we'll go from 6 90s to 12 90s. And that gives me a little bit of leeway where I can get a little bit more elaborate with how I'm building these pipes, the architecture, and so on and so forth. And I don't limit myself with the materials that I'm ordering. Granted, if you're working with very expensive materials like an Inconel or something like that, budget may not allow to have an excess or a surplus of materials, but since this stuff is moderately priced, I'll go ahead and double that up. After the initial bends here, we need to go into primary collectors, and I need to order some straight tubing for that. So again, if I using 4-foot sticks of this 321 stainless tubing to cut 2 3-into-1 collectors, I essentially need 3 2-foot long sections of that tubing. So what I'll do is buy 2 4-foot sticks of it, and I'll have 2 feet left over for any excess length that I need or anything like that, excess straight that is necessary. And the other 3 2-foot sections will get me each of my respective 6 primary collector pieces, if that makes sense. At this point, we have materials selected or materials marked out for each of the primaries and each of the primary collectors. Now from the primary collectors, we need to build the secondaries. And the secondaries are the tubes that will come off of those 2 3-into-1 collectors and make their way up to the larger 2-into-1 collector. So the size of this obviously increases as we're going from 1.5 inch for the primaries to 2.5 inches for the secondaries. So I'm going to end up flaring the ends of the primary collectors to a little bit larger diameter, and I think that I should be able to make them a 2-inch outlet pretty easily. So I'll go ahead and I will mark out 2 2-inch to 2.5-inch transitional cones. So that way I'm not trying to do anything crazy with stretching the tubes or anything like that. And I can use the shape of a cone to my advantage to go from smaller diameter up to larger diameter. And from there, all that we need now are to figure out the materials that are necessary to actually construct the larger 2-inch, or 2.5-inch rather, secondaries. And those secondaries will go from the ends of those cones on the ends of the primary collectors up to our 2.5-inch secondary collector right here. So, looking at this again, we'll need to use tight radius bends, and I think if I get 180 degrees worth of bend for each of these secondaries, that should be more than enough. And actually, I'll go ahead and I'll make that 5 of them. That way it gives me one for a little bit of leeway in case I screw a cut up, or in case I need a little bit more or a little bit different bend than what that 180 degree section, or 180 degrees cumulative bend for each side, will allow for. So now you can see we have kind of our rough list, and we have our rough spec for the port size, a rough stuff for the primary materials, which this is almost unnecessary at this point in time, but we have 12 1.5" bends, 2 4-foot 1.5" straight sections, 2 2" to 2.5" cones, and 5 2.5" tight radius 90 degree bends. Now, obviously, we also need the turbine flange. Now, the head flange is one that my friend Matt is going to machine for me, which there'll be a segment in an upcoming video about that. So the head flange is not something that is super critical or that I need to factor into the materials list right now. But let's go ahead and take the materials that I have listed so far and go transfer them to the computer. So this computer is old and slow, so there might be a whole lot of cuts in this section, but just bear with me. So first, what I'm going to do is open up Microsoft Excel, and I'm going to open up my project materials spreadsheet. So this is a spreadsheet that I made a few years ago, and it more or less is a calculator for any materials that you are putting together. So I have it set up where you can, at the top of the spreadsheet, list out some of the details of the project, the owner, the vehicle, a brief project description, and the list date. So that way it could help you with your organization. At the bottom is a notes section, and we have the vendor you're ordering from, the number of items, an item description, part number, and the unit price and the shipping price. So the way that it works, let's just do this simply here. Say we have 2 items. Each of the items is $5, and we have a $10 shipping charge. So that should equate to $20 total. Down at the bottom, total shipped spits out $20. So pretty easy and pretty self-explanatory spreadsheet. It's just something that I like to use to make this process a little bit easier. So now that I'm on the Stainless Bros website, I can go ahead and start compiling the list that I need for all of these materials. And let's go ahead and go to 321 bends elbows. We'll go down to tight radius 90 with the leg, and there we go, all onto the materials. So again, we'll start from the primaries, work our way down through the secondaries, and do everything that way. So we're going to start here with these 1.5" 1D or 1.5" centerline radius 90 degree bends. So I'll come over to the spreadsheet, put down Stainless Bros for our vendor. I'll put 12 in the number of items, and then 1.5" TR for tight radius 90. We'll do a little trick. Hold Alt 0176. That makes the little degree marker right there. Bend. And go ahead, copy the part number. Center that up to appease the OCD. And looks like $29.99 is our unit price. $29.99. And there we go. We have the first portion of the materials down. So I'll make a check on my paper sheet and then move on to the next section. So from there, we need to get our straight tubing. At least that's the next thing on the list. So again, right here, 1.5" straight tube. It's a 48" or 4-foot section. So come back over here. Stainless Bros, we need 2 of them. And it's a 4-foot long, 1.5" 321 stainless straight tube. And I'll actually go back up to my top one here. and make a notation that it is 321 stainless, as this whole list will be copied and sent over to my rep at Stainless Bros, and this just makes it easier for them to go through. So again, center that up, come over, unit price $84.99, $84.99. There we go. We have a second portion of our list here. And remember to Control S or to save frequently in case you have a power outage or anything like that. You're not losing all of the work that you've done so far. So come over, check off the sheet, move on to the next one. And the next thing will be our cone. So go over to Transition Reducer Cones. And right here we have 1.5 inch to 2 inch, which we don't need that. We need a 2 inch to 2.5 inch. So those are right here. Again, over here, oops, Stainless Bros to, this will be a 2 inch to 2.5 inch, 321 stainless, centric cone. Part number, copy and paste, center, and $27.99, enter, and there we go. So you can get kind of the idea of how this goes. So I'll go through, knock out the rest of it, and then we can talk a little bit more about the rest of this. All right, so there are all of the materials that we need from Stainless Bros, at least for the stainless portion of this header. So we also need a turbine flange. All right, so I found the company that I sourced this turbine flange through, and it's Custom Fab Shop. I have no affiliation with them or anything like that. They just offer the part that I need. So we'll go to all categories, turbo inlet flanges, OEM, and we just need to scroll down through the list and find our CT26 flange. There we go. So it says turbo or CT26 stainless CT26 inlet flange, 2.40 inches, Toyota Supra Mark III Land Cruiser 4.0. So this is our flange right here, and we'll go ahead and copy this information over to the worksheet. So I'll put the company name, Custom Fab Shop, 1 stainless CT26. So this CT26 turbine inlet flange, copy the part number, and center, $39.95. And what I'll also do is copy this link, and we'll insert a hyperlink here, just so that way I have it for my reference. And that's a pretty handy thing to do, nice and easy through Excel, and now we have that. So obviously I've left the shipping column blank, at least for the Stainless Bros stuff, as I'll wait to see what the shipping charge is from them. But for this, at least, I can figure out what the shipping charge will be. Alright, so it looks like that turbine inlet flange, and you guys may have caught it in the last clip, it's listed as free shipping, so we don't have to worry about shipping for that. So at the bottom, that spits out the total shipped, at least this is the total retail price of essentially $875.75 or $875. However, I'll end up using my wholesale discount through Stainless Bros, so that price will go down a little bit, but that at least gets me in the ballpark of where I'm going to be for the materials involved with this build. So hopefully that makes sense, at least how I do materials planning for different header builds and different projects, so on and so forth. This was a pretty easy example for it, and there will be much more in the materials department that will be involved with this project, but what I listed out there will at least get us started and at least be the foundation to build the new turbo header. So if that spreadsheet is something that you feel that would benefit you, go ahead and send me an email. And the email, or my email, will be somewhere on the screen here. Send me an email and I will gladly send the spreadsheet over to you. And then you can use it for your projects and to assist you with any builds that you are in the midst of. So I've gone ahead and ordered the turbine flange and sent an email to Stainless Bros to get the order for all of the tubing on the way as well. So once those things arrive, we can knock out the secondary collector and make some progress on some of the tube work to get that portion of this header build squared away. So the only outstanding thing right now is the head flange, which Matt has the file for that and everything already. And it's just a matter of putting a chunk of stainless in his CNC mill and getting the machine work knocked out. So hopefully we can get that done in the very near future. And then the idea for this header that's been bouncing around my head can go from the theoretical to the practical. Well, I can't do too much on the Mark II until the materials arrive. They are all on the way, but end of the year shipping delays or end of the year logistics taking longer than normal or longer than anticipated kind of puts me in a position where my hands are tied right now and I can't do anything else until those come in. So with that being said, that will be about the end of this episode. So hopefully you guys still got something out of it. I know it's a talking episode. They're not my favorite things to film, but everything that we went over in this episode is all necessary to bring projects like this to life. And in the next episode, we'll go ahead and get going on this new turbo header for this thing. I'm very excited for it. Can't wait to get going on it. So with that being said, let's go ahead and wrap this one up. So thank you guys as always for tuning in, for coming on all these different adventures with me, and especially coming along as we begin to resurrect this old car right here. I keep saying it, but I can't say it enough how special this car is to me, and it makes me very happy to see it coming back to life in an extraordinary fashion. So we have a lot to look forward to with this, a lot to look forward to with that. Those things will all be coming in the future, as this one is all but wrapped up at this point in time. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and actually wrap it up. So as always, be sure to subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, check out the website for manifolds, for merch, for all things good that way. And I will see you all in the next episode.